And welcome back to the fourth and final episode of the Jimmy House podcast. Today we have Sawyer Klatt, one of my favorite powerlifters of all time. He is 23 years old.
Yeah, I've just turned 23.
Just turned 23. Happy birthday. One of the best powerlifters in fact, he's the best powerlifter in the 242 drug tested right now in the world, correct?
I know I have the world record in the deadlift.
So
I gotta see if I have the total. I can't remember if I do or not.
I feel like it has to be pretty close at least.
It's close right now.
He has a world record in the deadlift, and that was 842, something
848.
like that. 848, yeah. So he and I met over here in Houston, that's where he lives, and it was a big group between myself, Sawyer, Nabil, Johnny Kaufman, Derek, and I basically just drove down here literally just to pick up sumo deadlifting cues from all of them, since Sawyer's in the mid 800s, Nabil's in the 700s at like 160, Derek's in the 900s, Johnny's in the 800s, so like over here in Houston, like sumo deadlifting is just, it's like a phenomenon, and honestly, like between Sawyer and Nabil that we'll actually interview after this, I learned quite a bit, and it was actually really cool because from that one occasion, I actually not only grew to like become a really big fan of yours, but like very honored to be able to call you like a good friend from afar. So there's a lot about Sawyer outside of the lifting that we will get into that I actually want to dive into myself. But before we start, you want to talk a little bit about like what your best lifts are and like what your best accomplishes are in lifting?
Yeah, just to backpack on that, you know what's funny is after the whole, like when you came down to Texas, not shortly after you pulled 800 also.
Oh yeah.
Which is like funny, and it was with immaculate form.
Thanks. It's like a disease out here. You just gotta come out to Houston.
Hang out with a couple 800s, full 800.
Yeah,
I gotta do that with the 9 and 1,000 people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you did do that, huh?
Not yet.
When are you doing that?
9?
Yeah.
Well, right now we're on a prep to do 400 kilos.
Okay.
So
nice.
we want to do that, and then we'll see what happens.
If you guys are interested in my one-on-one online coaching services, make sure to check out my coaching app where we can customize your workout, customize your nutrition for whatever specific goals that you need. We have a link down below in the show notes if you want to apply, when we can schedule a free consultation call with myself.
It's
thank you.
Code Sawyer, right, on Gymshark.
Yeah.
If you guys want to get any Gymshark stuff, make sure to use Sawyer's code. But yeah, go ahead. What are your best lifts and accomplishments in powerlifting?
Yeah. So in competition, I did the 716 squat, the like 407 bench, and then the 848 deadlift, which then secured me for the world record.
Yep.
I think the world record before that was like maybe 804 or something. So I got like
that's
a good amount over it.
Yeah, seriously.
And then now that it's been almost a year since my last competition, I've pulled 860, I've squatted 750, I've benched 430.
Yeah.
So we've added on some good totals.
And you're going up a little bit in weight, right?
Yeah, but I still want to kind of compete in the 242.
Okay.
So this probably will be my last meet as a 242.
Okay.
And then I'll go into the 120, so the 264s.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, and you did that at the American Pro last year, correct? Yep. And I actually competed at that same meet with him, much more so as a hobbyist, but it was really cool to be around guys like Sawyer, guys like Nabil, and see like them in their element. In fact, I remember when I was there, like you were in a different
I was in the morning,
Yeah, you were in the morning, so you had already set your record at that time. But I remember when you were coaching Nabil, I had hit my deadlift, and then Nabil came in 45 pounds lighter and hit the same weight that I did, but we're all celebrating outside. There's a clip on YouTube. It was really cool. But I think the biggest thing for me when I first saw your stuff, it was like the videos that started to catch a lot of traction when you would just like basically like go berserk after your PRs.
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to dive into, because the intensity in lifting for myself is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. Where do you think that derives from you, how intense you are, especially when you are able to like show it after a big lift? Like, where does that come from? I think for me, like, it just comes from like various instances in my life, my childhood trauma, whatever you want to call it. But for you, where does that derive from?
I think it's just one of those things where I don't really like get mad outside of the gym. You know, I feel like I'm a little more like calm, collected, and like I don't get like angry, you know. So the only time I'm putting out that energy, because it has to come out somewhere, right? So being able to just like, okay, I can exert all whatever, like any like shit that's going on in my life, whatever the case is, I can just put all that energy into the one lift, and then as soon as it's over, you know, and then that's it, you know, and at least with that, it's like, okay, I just hit like 20 pounds more. There's some kind of achievement, versus I feel like a lot of people, they'll take out that energy on something, and then like before they know it, they're in jail, or like something, or they'll have some like messed up thing happen to them. So at least like with me, it's like, okay, if I can kind of like just hone in on that specific feeling and then get something out of it. I feel like it's the best case scenario for me.
Yeah, I like that a lot. When I see it, I just think, oh man, this guy is fighting some demons or whatever. But you would just say that's just like you letting out all the energy. Then,
yeah, just because it has to go out somewhere. You know.
It is cool because a lot of powerlifters, especially like within your friend group, very, very quiet, soft-spoken, very humble individuals, very, very nice people. Like you and Nabil are just amazing people and one of the best that I've met in powerlifting as a whole. But yet, when you hit your PR, like you go from this calm, cool, collective, just completely unleashed, like something that most people wouldn't even know that's within you.
Yeah.
And I love it personally. Like I love seeing it. But I think to a lot of people, like, holy crap, like is that what I have to do to be a powerlifter?
No,
I love it because to me it's kind of how you branded yourself initially, and now like you're catching some legitimate speed and like the growth that you've had within your strength. But not only that, but also as a brand has grown quite a bit as well, and you deserve all of it. I think that's really awesome. Your roots, though, something that I think not a lot of people know about. I listened to your podcast that you just did recently when you talked about your wrestling background, but I know a lot of your work ethic has to come from wrestling, and obviously being from Minnesota, one of the most prominent wrestling states, I'm sure a lot of your wrestling pedigree and your lessons learned through wrestling has translated to powerlifting. What would you say like about your upbringing with wrestling coming to powerlifting?
Yeah. I think one of those things where I do like what's nice about with wrestling and with powerlifting is the politics in there. It's like very minimal compared to like a lot of other sports, right? So like in wrestling, if you get a takedown or if you pin the person, it's like, okay, night and day, he won, right? Same thing with powerlifting. If you pick up the weight or you push the weight or whatever the case is, you win, right? For whoever has the most, right? So that I like that, okay, if you are just already the strongest person there, you're going to showcase it, and that's how you win. But then when it comes down to like the grit, I think that wrestling builds mentally, because I was wrestling since I was in kindergarten.
Right.
Being able to have that where I lost a lot of matches, and that builds, I think, really good character skills. Just losing, some kids don't lose a lot or lose enough, I think. Yeah. So for me, because I was just already bigger boned, so when I was in 7th grade, I was wrestling seniors. So having it where knowing your time is going to come eventually, and just making sure like, I just am basically just eating shit 24/7. I'm getting my ass kicked, and it's not fun. Like who wants to go almost 2 years of just making small progress, but you're just getting your ass kicked by seniors. Yeah. And I hated that. I hate the idea though of like, because the only reason why you're losing is because it's a senior. That's one thing I hated, but it's something I had to like really just kind of remember too, because there is kind of a balancing act with that mentally, because there's so many kids I think that get into sports and it becomes not fun because they're losing so much, and then they decide to just quit, right? And it's like right on that verge when you're like just about to go through that ceiling of like, that's when you start making progress. Same thing with the gym, right? Sometimes it's like not the first day or the first week, but it might be 6 months or 8 months of continuous progress that you start like actually seeing results, So I think those things all kind of just come hand in hand where everything's kind of intertwined with that,
And you said, I think I recall your grandfather is initially kind of what started you in wrestling, or?
So my grandpa, he wrestled when he was in college, and then his son, he wrestled in high school, right? So having that kind of nice background where it was still familiar, we had his headgear and his wrestling shoes down in the basement, right? So it's something where it wasn't unfamiliar. He knew moves, right? Maybe not the most advanced, but enough where it's like you can teach a child and whatnot. And then same thing with my uncle. And then funny enough, my auntie, her husband, so it was his uncle who was actually an Olympic gold medalist for wrestling.
Wow. What's his name?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna space. I'll be able to send it to you. I'll know. They sent me. He has a wrestling camp called Camp of Champs or Camp of Champs or something.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
So yeah. But it's just kind of cool where it's all kind of intertwined like that. And even though growing up in like Minnesota, right, and even though Minnesota's like pretty big on wrestling, where I'm at, it's not the most important. Hockey is the most important.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but it is kind of interesting where how powerlifting and wrestling does have its like similar similar traits. You're both wearing a singlet. You both have to get weighed in, right? So at least I felt like, hey, I can do this sport, and it's familiar enough. It's not like I'm going completely left turn into a different sport.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, I think you had said towards the end of your wrestling career, before you completely committed to lifting, you were experiencing a lot of injuries, correct? Like, I think it was your shoulders?
No, so that was, no, I had my shoulders 8th grade.
Okay.
Seventh grade.
That's what got you into lifting, right?
To
fix it. Okay.
For the most part, because I had to do physical therapy just to get back to baseline. It was like 18 months. So then, because I was starting off wrestling season 7th grade, and then I had to cut it short because of my shoulder dislocation. So then worked up until 8th grade for wrestling, got to wrestle in 8th grade, and then during that period of time, that's when I started finally kind of getting into the weight room. I was around like 15 years old, 140 pounds, and I kind of already built a basis of like, okay, hey, this is somewhat what training is, and being disciplined in training, because if I wanted to get into wrestling, I had to do physical therapy. So I had to kind of create the discipline of going to physical therapy, then putting in my hours just to get back to normal, and then go into wrestling, and then that kind of fully established, because your coaches are always telling you, right? And it's one of those things where you kind of really have to listen, because they always tell you as a kid, get into the weight room, get in the weight room. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in the weight room. And then because I was already familiar enough, just due to physical therapy, where it's like, okay, now let me just add on more weight and eat more food. And puberty did a great thing where
totally.
I could just ride the roller coaster.
I think it's still happening for you. You're still growing quite a bit.
I'm not trying to ever like cut too much. I want to go into the 260s.
That's incredible.
And the frame's for it, you know?
Yeah, totally, for sure. And so then with that said, with your experience of injuries and then building strength to prevent them.
Minor injuries. The shoulder one was the most I've ever had.
Really? Okay.
Nabil, right before you came here, we were discussing, because he's been having some injuries more so. And for me, shoulder one was a big thing, but other than that, I've had only like small nicks and tweaks that I think a lot of people will have during like a high competitive powerlifting career, but nothing where I'm like, oh no, right?
Yeah, you were very well put together for sure.
And I think all that's just due to, one, I think the stabilization muscles that you get from wrestling, the physical therapy, which was all based on stabilization, right? All the things for joints and ligaments, and having where it's like I wasn't pushing weight when I was super, super young. It was literally all stability things. I think that actually really carried over to then being able to now do what I'm doing now.
Okay, I like that. So then for somebody that's new to lifting or wanting to do sports such as wrestling or powerlifting, and maybe they deem that they are injury prone, what are some of the bigger lessons you took away from the lifting you did early on to get past some of those injuries that you would pass on to a beginner?
Recommendations for a person. This is, all people are so different. So I would look at what's your like body size, or like how tall are you, because I feel like the taller you are, the more injury you're prone. A lot of shorter people, I feel like they have great stability. Like any person I've met that are somewhat shorter, they can fill into their frame faster, right? And their leverage is, because they're not as long and they can kind of fill in already in that high school route, right? They're just a little more robust, right? A lot of people that I've known that probably had some shoulder injuries, they're usually like 6 foot plus, or if they're having knee issues. So just based on that, it's usually because they're smaller individuals and they have the big frame, so you have to fill into that big frame, and that's like the hard part, right? Other than that's not an answer people want. They want, oh, can I use this? Can I do this movement, or can I do this shoulder workout? And it's like you can, and those will help. But the big thing is just you got to put on more tissue. You got to put on more size. And
beautifully said.
It's just, but there is other things you can do, right? But it's all going to be structured around, can you get bigger? Your body needs to get bigger. And that's what I'm a big kind of component of.
Yeah, I think you put it quite well, because to me, if you're trying to prevent injuries, then just putting on more skeletal muscle mass is the ultimate answer to that. Like, there's obviously exercises that you can do to strengthen a specific area, and that will last for X amount of time until you do X amount of work to almost undo it, unless you're just able to put on so much mass, essentially, like within reason, to be able to just prevent all possible injuries. And that's like, I think for you at this point now, lifting as much as you do with some of that injury history that you had when you were younger, I think it says a lot, because you've done nothing but add muscle mass over the last decade or more, and you're like very well put together for how much you lift and how often you lift. Like I don't ever see you really post about like injuries or even nagging pains at all.
No, and like the only time I had a small little nagging injury, and that was after I squatted the 750 and pulled 860.
Okay.
But that's like, oh, yeah, you just did that, and then I benched a PR, right? So it's like, okay, I just did the max amount of what my body was fully capable of. Of course, the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't move, right?
Right.
So, and to take that into account, right, those are things that you got to take away from being an athlete. You know, I think a lot of people want to say they're an athlete, but these are like things that happen, and it's just like a pill you have to swallow. Like, oh, I'm gonna wake up days where maybe my knees don't feel as good, or oh, maybe I feel my back's a little more tight, right? But this is what you have to do in order to be a champion, right? These are all things that you have to do. Every person who's ever been great at anything has had these small tweaks, maybe even major injuries, but this is what puts them in the position they are in.
Totally.
You know, I think a lot of people that preach recovery and like, oh, no pain, right? I'm like, dude, you're fucking weak. Like, of course, then that's perfectly fine if you want to be like a super healthy individual and live in life with absolutely no pain. But pain isn't generally terrible. It's not a bad thing. It's just your brain telling you, hey, this is something's going off, but it doesn't mean it's absolutely wrong. Just like how when people go to the gym and they're doing like leg extensions, right, or leg curls, it hurts.
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah, you've never done this before, right? And you need to do that in order to get a little bit better. Now you can take it to an extreme route, right, and be like, I don't know, ruined with like injuries and whatnot. But if you have a well kind of concentrated mind of like, okay, this is what my goals are, this is how far I can go, and you know your body enough, then you're in the right area. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. So then I think a lot of people watching will probably wonder this, since it's such a trending thing now. Do you do anything specific for recovery modalities or practices that are outside of lifting?
I was just watching this thing with Mike Gizzertel, and he was talking about, and I couldn't agree anymore.
Was it the tier list?
No. He was talking, he's like, all these people that are talking about recovery modalities, right? A lot of, the big takeaway is, you're usually doing more when you should be doing less, right? So, and I had this conversation with Phil Heath, and we got in an argument, okay?
Casual.
And and because everybody can have their own philosophies, right? And I think different philosophies will fit with different sports and genres, right? So in particular with me, I'm not a big fan of ice baths. I don't care for them. I think if you're looking at a person who's playing like a high level sport, that's sport specific, not weight specific, right? And it's something where like football, for example, or basketball, where, oh, hey, you have a game on Monday and you also have a game on Friday. That in between is not enough to recover. You're pretty much just like lubing up your body to numb it, but that's not the ideal way of recovering. You know, it's just like you're just trying to get this race car to get from point A to point B without the brakes falling off.
Right.
So you're just rigging up the system, and that's not bad because in point, this is their sport, this is what they're doing, and sometimes it's what you have to do, right? Just like how it's not ideal to only have 6 hours, but people have jobs and people have this, and sometimes you only get 4 or 5 hours, right?
Yeah.
It's just how it is. So there's a way to use it, but there's also a way like where I wouldn't endorse it. Like ice baths, I don't endorse. Even like red light therapy, I don't see it as a huge thing, right? For the amount of what you're having to pay for the equipment, right? Somebody wants to send it to me, fine, I'll try it. But I don't think it's
exactly.
the factor, the thing of like, oh, this is what helped me. Food is always going to be number one. Sleep is always going to be number one. All right. I even put like soft tissue work at like number 4 or 5.
Okay.
I don't even put that at 3.
What's 3 to you?
Off the top of my head, I would say just like anything that can calm your brain, right?
Yeah.
Anything that can lower your bad cortisol. Because I feel like stress, anything that's very big, like stress induced, is going to also impact the sleep.
Right.
You know, or just the training in general. You know, you could flip, you know, 3 and 4 maybe around for like stress induced and then just training. Because I've had it where I've been very stressed out and my food is amazing, my sleep's amazing for what it could be, but because I was so stressed out, my training was just terrible, you know? So stress management I think is really important and obviously overlooked, and just being able to handle stress in general is really good.
Yeah.
There's some people that maybe just didn't develop the skills, and at that point you just have to do your research to figure out, okay, what kind of person are you and how can you kind of mitigate that stress management, you know?
I agree with that. That's a really good point, because I think I saw that same video, or at least a video similar to it, and his main point was a lot of the recovery modalities, sauna, cold plunge, etc., are stressors at the end of the day. Like whatever benefit that they do have, it is a stressor.
Yep.
So if somebody is dealing with a lot of stress already and they're adding in something like that, then at the end of the day you're just adding in more stress for your body to have to overcome.
Then you're not recovered.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like if you are just dealing with a 9-to-5 job and then going to the gym and then whatever life throws at you, there's like very minimal time to actually like just recover from all those things. So I think that's a great point. With that, let's parlay that into, with somebody like yourself, big on social media, lots of success in powerlifting, seemingly very successful, which you are. Most people like see you and almost think somebody like you is so far away from what they could ever achieve, to where the thought of you dealing with stress is like unimaginable. But obviously you do, and you find a way to overcome it and deal with it and manage it. Without getting too personal, what kind of stresses do you typically deal with? And then how do you end up like overcoming that mentally to have good training sessions?
Like for me, like like we go to minor to major, right?
Sure.
So like minor amounts would be like, okay, if I feel like I'm not getting in my food, right? It's like a minor stress where it's like, oh geez, okay, I'm not getting enough food.
Right.
And then that can play off in the next couple of days where I'll start feeling it, you know? Maybe not like actually physically, but it's more mentally, you know, where I know when I'm lifting, hey, Sawyer, you didn't get your calories in, you didn't get this food in, you missed out on this protein, you know, or it's like a little voice in the back of the head.
Especially for you, it's so much more important to the decimal that you are hitting your calories and your protein on a daily basis, because you're putting on weight right now. Your strength is at such an elite level that as soon as you start fucking with your diet or your sleep, then it can start going down just as fast as it went up. So it's actually a pretty big stressor.
So I've been getting way better with that. Before, I think almost like a year ago, I would almost, I don't want to say like turn into a dick, because I don't feel like I've ever turned into like a dick, because I've met dicks. I'm like, okay, I am not at that level, but just where I'll just get quiet and I'm just like, okay, I gotta like put my head down and I just have to just make this food, because it's no one else's problem but mine getting in my food, you know? So just being able to understand when I'm going on vacation or whatnot, I'm gonna lose weight. Just understanding, all right, I'm gonna lose weight and my lifts are probably gonna go down, but it's not gonna stay like that. Because when I come back, I'm just gonna have to put my head down, and that's when it's on my time. But when I'm flying and when I'm going to travel, it's not on my time anymore, it's on everybody else's, and that's what I have to be okay with, you know? So that can be a stressor with just like not getting in the calories. I think just like family stressors in general, I think everybody has family issues or family dilemmas, and I think one of those things where it's like, okay, understanding what can I do to help with the problems is good. I think a lot of people will just like get problems and then they won't do anything about it, and then that's when it just becomes a bigger problem. So if I can have it where if there is a problem, what can I do to help with the problem? And then that usually kind of like will calm myself in a sense, because we'll calm the other people who's having some issues. So it's pretty much just figuring out any problems that I'm having that's causing me stress, what can I do to also just minimize that stress? Because it's so easy to get stressed and then not do anything and just wait for it to blow over. And sometimes it only is a day, and sometimes it's 2 weeks. And 2 weeks of lingering stress, I don't have time for that. You know, I'll get it, I'll fix it, I'll figure out what's the issue. But some people just to like let stress just kind of almost hang there and they're not doing anything, that fucks with me. I can't do that.
And I think that's important to touch on, because in today's world with social media, you would be considered like an influencer to some degree, which to me, you're much more than that because you're actually genuinely talented in the sport that you do, and you're doing ungodly amounts of weight. You're world class at what you do. So you're like much above that. But with your social media following and the different events that you attend, you kind of like mesh into that crowd to some degree. So with that said, some people see that and think that every day is just great. You know, if I had that type of time, I'd be a world class powerlifter too.
But also I think this is the other thing. I'll sometimes like write down like in my notes or in a journal or whatever how I'm feeling, whatnot, and then I'll read it back like almost like a David Goggins mind. I'm like, this sounds such like a bitch. I'm like, what the fuck am I complaining about? And then like because I'll read it and realize how like foolish I'd be like complaining about something, I'll like not want to complain about it. There's like no point. I'm just like, what? It becomes almost comedic about that. Like I'm complaining about this, and then it's like that stress of whatever it was just goes away because I can just see why am I complaining about that? You know?
I like that. I like it. When we had that dinner not too long ago, I really like just kind of how you think about things, how your brain works. It's very clear why you're at the level that you're at because you're a very deep thinker and you apply that to your training and to your day-to-day life. So it's cool. Outside of that, one thing that I wanted to bring up is just obviously you're very talented, and obviously like with your body of work and your look, you could do really anything you really wanted to, whether that's male modeling, powerlifting, you could do bodybuilding if you really wanted to, and you also had a chance to do pro wrestling. Do you want to talk about like you actually having a WWE tryout?
Are you guys looking for a barefoot shoe that doesn't look like you're stealing from your grandmother's closet? Well, I have the solution for you. Use my code HOUSESTRONG at vivobarefoot.com if you want the best looking, best feeling, most versatile barefoot shoe on the market.
You want to talk about what that experience was like trying out for WWE? I know you were training for a powerlifting meet at the same time, I believe, right?
Yeah. I was on the road to that, and then that kind of seeped in, and I was like, all right, let me see if I can juggle both, which wasn't the smartest decision, but it was one of those things where when you get opportunities, you got to also take them.
Yeah, seriously.
So it was a very, very fun opportunity. I remember we were sat down at dinner. I was telling you, when I was a kid, that's like I watched WWE. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was like this is the best thing ever, right? And you know, growing up, that kind of fades away with like everything. I think when you think what this is awesome, and then you start growing up, you're like, okay, you know, I like that, but it's not what I want to be. But being able to get presented with that opportunity, I was like, okay, let me try it out, right? So I had a friend that's also, he's doing wrestling too, not anything like NXT or WWE.
Is it Beckham?
No. Oh, him too.
Yeah, he's doing it now.
Yeah. I have a friend, his name's Kyle Bewley. He goes around up in Minnesota, Wisconsin areas.
Okay, cool.
He's actually, his mentor is, oh my goodness, I'm ruining this because I can't remember.
Mr. Kennedy, right?
Yeah.
He's in Minnesota. That's
him. So that's his mentor. So it's kind of interesting where that's what he wanted, and he was in high school still at the time. And he's like, Sawyer, you got to do this. And I was like, okay, let me just try it out, right? So then when I got there, I got to meet everybody, got to meet the team, my partners, the people that are also competing also. And I was like the youngest kid there.
How old were you?
Maybe I was like 19 or 20 at the time.
Did they reach out to you personally, or how did that?
So my friend Kyle, so they had this thing where they had all this information out, right? So he put my name in there.
Wow.
Right? And because he told me, and I was like, yeah, like if you want, and I just like didn't really think of it. And then before I know it, I get a phone call.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I go and I get to talk to this person, and he basically runs me through. And at this point, I was just like, all right, I'm already on the phone. I've already gotten this far.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure, I'll do this thing.
Right.
And they're like, okay, we just need you to fill out this stuff and do a couple, extra stuff where it's like I had to get blood tested and a few other things. And then before I know it, I'm in Florida, And then got to do the little tryout. It was, I think we were there for almost like a week or 5 days or something. And they really try to just beat the shit out of you when you're there.
You're right.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And coming where I was doing no cardio last time it was probably wrestling season, so maybe like 2.5 years, and all these kids that are just like, who pretty much like live and breathe wrestling are there, and I'm like, all right, let me just see how I'm like, I think I'll be fine, right?
That's fine.
And I was really just hoping on my natural athleticism just to be able to keep up, and it did.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was too winded.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'd probably be more winded now because I put on an extra 25 pounds from then. But it was very interesting, just seeing behind the scenes of how not only like, oh, hey, sometimes you don't know what's going on. Sometimes you don't know who's winning the match. Sometimes there's things that happen, right? Issues, injuries. So being able to kind of like observe from that part and not from just the TV, from what I'm used to, was very, very kind of almost comforting in a way, where it was like, wow, there's so much more to than what I thought of what this business was. And I think that kind of opened my mind more so to, okay, this almost involves in everything, right? You think how this business is ran, but then as soon as you get employed by that person, oh, it might be ran this way, right? Or just how social media is in general, where you'll watch a YouTuber and then you get to see the behind the scenes. So that was a big takeaway from kind of just participating in that, is it's like way more, Optimus Prime, way more that meets the eye kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But it was a unique opportunity, and I was very grateful to be kind of going into there. And I loved the acting aspect to it too. That was like what really got me going, where I thought it was so cool, because you get to see these people where they might just be nice, reserved, and then they're like me after like a big deadlift PR screaming, but they are able to hold on to that for however long.
Yeah, that's actually quite literally how I describe it too. It's just like making this deadlift PR celebration last for however many minutes the match goes on for. And that's why, like, quite honestly, I think you're perfect for it, especially as you continue to get bigger and everything. When you have the long hair, like, you were like the part exactly
of a wrestler.
Yeah, you just had it. So I'm like, I'm not surprised that you got a call after you set all your goals. Maybe you should like look back into it. That'd be cool.
So I have a couple like. I would be coasting more onto like, I'd be more interested now than I was back then, because it was like so much, because it was like going from not being interested to then, oh, hey, this is kind of interesting, to then being like shoveled in there, and it's 5 days where they're trying to cram every piece of knowledge of wrestling within that 5 days. So then it almost becomes slightly overwhelming. I remember this one time I was calling my mom, because I don't really panic, but I was like I almost felt like I didn't belong there, because some of these people, because I had my social media and because of everything that I've already achieved beforehand, I kind of got like a ticket in, way more than some of these people that are on the road, and they just had the luck of the draw of somebody who was there that knew somebody who called somebody that was like, hey, this guy might be able to be good enough to, so hearing that and then knowing, fuck, I just basically got this phone call and this was like easy peasy, and then I'm hearing them, they're like, messed up stories of like how hard they had to work just to get here, and this is like not the fake part, this is like the truth, behind the curtains of people. And I was like, it almost made me feel like a little ashamed, like, am I like, I feel bad that I took almost like somebody's spot that was working super hard, because I know what that feels like when for what I've had to work hard for in powerlifting and training, to do fitness, whatever the case is. So it kind of threw me off when I was there, because I am kind of sensitive for that aspect of when you work hard for something, you do deserve it, So when that kind of was happening, I was like, fuck, is this even meant for me, because it felt like it almost came too easy. And then there was also just things where I didn't know the sport for what I knew was like 10, 12, 15 years ago. And obviously everything that happened 15 years ago is still in the direction of what the company is, right? Those legends are still legends, but now there's new legends, there's new superstars, there's this, and it wasn't what I was familiar with. So while I was there, I was like almost like researching, okay, who's this person, who's this champion, because you don't want to go into that and be almost disrespectful to the sport. And I try not being disrespectful as much as possible, and I probably still was disrespectful, because I am almost a foreigner to that sport.
Absolutely.
And there has to be some kind of hierarchy of respect in something where you have people that have kind of designated their entire life for this,
I would say, definitely in pro wrestling more than most other sports, for sure. And I think that's a very humble perspective. But also, the cool thing is with WWE is that they're so confident in their coaches. The wrestling experience doesn't mean nearly as much as somebody that fits the part, that's moldable,
So they really like that.
Right, exactly. And to me, like, again, like, big, tall, strong, long hair, like, animated, like, handsome. You got the look for it. So, and, I get that perspective, but at the end of the day, like, if they're not born with it, then it's not your problem.
Did you ever watch that, like, Paige movie? It was, like, All in the Family wrestling movie?
I haven't, no.
Okay. It's a funny wrestling movie that came out, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's in it and whatnot. You saw it? Yeah, very funny. So basically, she goes there And when she gets the WWE tryout, she like butchered it, right? And that's exactly how I felt. Like we did this test where we were doing like all the physical things, and I was just a little too eager, a little too happy, and I like overstepped everything. Like we had this one where we had to throw a ball, and I whipped it way too far.
Really?
And then we had one where we had to jump, and I jumped, and I like jumped way too far, slipped, smoked the back of my head on the concrete.
Jesus.
And like I was fine, but you know when you can tell in the room where it looked bad, and everybody's like, ooh.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, oh fuck, right? And it's just like one of those things where it's like I was already excited to be there.
Yeah.
I was like the youngest kid there, and I was like, okay, let me do everything. And even the coaches were like, all right guys, tone it down. Don't make sure you're not jumping too high, not doing everything. And I was didn't think, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
So I think if I did go a second time, right, a lot more conservative, right, being able to keep that little kid a little bit more intact, because it is one of those fun experiences where you get to see, oh hey, there's that wrestler and there's that wrestler, and it kind of just makes it more fun.
Well, I hope you do, man, because that'd be really cool to see, to be honest. Wrestling also is really good out here because Booker T School's out here. That's where Beckham trains under.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really cool. But the other thing you did while doing all that, I know after you got home from the training, you had to go home and hit your numbers for your prep too, right? You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, pretty much like right after we did like 300 kilos on squat. And then pulled, I think it was like 740 or something in traiing.
Right.
That's what got us to the USAPL Raw Nationals.
Okay.
And then I won that, luckily.
Wow. Yeah.
But it was just a lot of things going on, juggling, and luckily like it worked out for the best. But I was just like, when you're like take on way too much, you're like, it will work out, and then like towards the end, you're like, all right, this is kind of going downhill.
Yeah, well, can you talk about what they had you do in the WWE tryout? Because what people don't understand is what you're doing in the tryout and then coming into your powerlifting session that same day. That's insane.
Yeah, because so we had to wake up in the morning, and for me, I'm not gonna ever miss like a training session. Like we had to have a hurricane, and I was still driving to the gym, right? So the same time, they would book us from, I believe it was on the bus by 8 and then didn't get done till about 5 or 6, right?
Okay.
And through that entire time, you only have one break, which was like a lunch break. But it's all cardio and drilling, pretty much, of hitting the ropes and just figuring out different moves with your partner. And they're just trying to see, okay, how fast and moldable are you? Where they tell you one thing, can you do it? So all that part, and then after that, I would just go home. So it'd be like 6 p.m. Go home, I would take like an hour nap, and then wake up and then Uber an hour, like a half an hour to the gym, and then still train. And then I remember one of the times I was coming down from the elevator, and one of the tryout person was like, oh, where you're going? I'm like, I have to hit the gym. And my face is all bruised up, right? I have my elbows, and he's just looking at me, he's like, oh, okay, make sure you get back in time for tomorrow. And I was like, yep. But what they go over, so, man, if I have to think correctly, it would be, we got there. First day was easier because it was just introduction. These are your coaches. This is this person, right? And then we did a little bit of acting, and then a small amount of kind of just like routine. So it was like push-ups, air squats, crunches, and then just being familiar with how to move in the ring. And then the next day after that, it was pretty much like, all right, go time. So it was drills of just, I don't know how you describe it. You'd know more, where it's like, it'd be rolling, right?
Yeah,
where you do your walks and then roll, walks, roll, runs and rolls. Then hitting the ropes correctly, so it's like hitting them with the arm out, and then going back and forth. We did a couple, one where 4 people in the ring, and then every whistle blew, you would have to go to the different directions.
Yep.
So we did that, bumping, which, funny enough, I sucked at that. Because out of all the muscles I trained, I was not used to be able to like keep like the strength to keep my like this tucked. Wrestling, it's the opposite, where it's like this way.
Yeah.
So if somebody tries snapping your head,
it's up,
you're used to that muscle.
Yeah.
But being able to tuck the jaw, when they're like, oh yeah, that's what you have to do, I was like trying to figure out, okay, so I have to keep this as well as hitting the mat at the same time, because you keep it like this, and then when you hit it, you have to tuck so you don't hit the back of your head. And it was like a concept that was completely foreign. And some people, when you're like a little bit rounder, you can kind of get away with it, because like the back, if you're thicker on your back, you can kind of get away. I didn't have as much back thickness that I do now, so maybe I'd be a little more comfortable. But it was one of those things where every time I was hitting it, I I knew it was bad because the coaches were just like,
Really?
Yeah, and I could feel it in the back of my head just ringing. I'm like, I know I'm hitting this wrong. Because with powerlifting, technique is the complete, like, you have to be able to hone in on your technique. If you don't, you know you're doing something wrong. So, like, I knew I was doing something wrong, because I'm like, this isn't how it's supposed to feel. Maybe it's supposed to feel like less pain, but I know this is like wrong, because one, the coaches are telling me, but also I can feel it being wrong, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, there's probably a couple other things we did. It was just mainly cardio. They wanted us to like get gassed out, and they wanted to see, okay, how long can a person last? Because that's all based upon the ring. You know, if your opponent or your partner pretty much is gassed out, it makes it where, okay, what can you do? You know, there's plenty of wrestlers that have been talked about where it's like, oh, this person was gassed, and then it sucked working with them. You know, and then the audience really does know, and you don't want that. You want to be able to keep the audience alive the entire time. That's what makes a match actually great. You know.
No, that's a good point. The term is called being blown up, and it's interesting because as the match goes on, you want to make it look like you are tired, but if you're actually tired, then that's an actual problem. So I mean, the tryout, just super cardio intensive. The bumps that he's talking about, hitting the rope, that's all actually really hard on the body. Like hitting the ropes for the first time, the ropes are not very giving.
No,
right? And
not.
I have scars on my back to this day from hitting the ropes wrong when I first started. So to give you perspective, he did that and then hit his powerlifting goals.
I have a photo where I hit the rope wrong. So basically that drill I was talking about where they blow the whistle and this person goes here, that person goes there. So I was first in line to do that. So we have 4 people here. And I just didn't understand it because it's so loud in there, right? And because we were just doing the what would you call it? I don't know. We were just hitting the ropes where it was just back and forth. That's what we were doing first. And then they added in the 3 other people, right? And I just couldn't remember where, okay, you blow the whistle, I'm supposed to go to this rope, because I was so used to going back, then forth, back and forth. So when they blew the whistle, I went back. And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to go over there. So this person hits the rope, the same rope that I'm supposed to hit. So when he hits it, so he puts weight on it, and then I'm about to hit it, the rope.
Hits you back.
And I hit deadlifts the day of that at nighttime. So I probably only got like 6 hours of rest. And you know when you're like already are sore in areas and your muscles are already kind of like thick, you can feel them swollen up. So as soon as that rope hit my lat, big ass bruise, all red. And after the thing, I was a little worried because I was like, what if I just tore my lat? Like it wouldn't be out of the question where, okay, I already worked out super hard the night before and then just getting hit with something. Because it just was all red and all purple and whatnot. And some of the wrestlers that were already like indie wrestlers, they're like, how the hell did that happen? I was like, the rope, and they're like, ropes don't do that. And I was like, yeah, they do. Don't tell me that. Don't fuck with my head. But I'll send you the photo so you can see it. Pull it up right there.
That'd be cool.
But I'm actually more happy that you're saying you have scars from there. So I'm like, all right, this is normal.
No, they're still on there. They're starting to go away now. But if you hit it incorrectly or the turnbuckle, it's very unforgiving for sure.
It wasn't fun.
Totally. Well, okay, so transitioning into more of the powerlifting side of things, touch on how you got acquainted with Gymshark and your relationship there.
So I've been making videos probably since I was like fitness videos. 16, let's say. I started filming like when I was 15, but didn't upload them until I was around like 16 years old. And then around the time I was like 17, traction was starting to pick up. 18, I got my first package from Gymshark. So I was 18 years old in high school, senior year.
Cool.
And I got like 3 packages, and usually by that time it was like, okay, you probably pretty much get signed. But the thing that happened was we had COVID. So when COVID happened, communication with everything, happened. No one knew what was going on. So I was already kind of like on the route to then sign with them. And then COVID happened. Gyms were closed. I had to figure out how to train. So I went through that process that every person that was in the gym had to figure that out. It was like fend for themselves, figure it out. And then it wasn't until after I kind of pretty much pulled my 800, I kind of got back in contact with them. And then I think it was like a year later I signed with them.
Okay. That's awesome.
So it was one of those things where I knew I kind of wanted to be with that company for like the longest time. It was just figuring out what was the best time. And I truly believe it was better that I signed when I did versus when I was like 18.
Interesting. Okay.
As weird as that sounds, I just feel like I grew more as a person during those times where I didn't know if anything was going to work out, didn't know if social media was going to work out, didn't even know if I was supposed to go to college. It was like the only time when I was younger where I had not doubts, but like, oh geez, did I make the right decision? I was fully invested in this and making this my career. Now it was like, oh wow, oh no, what's going on? Because
interesting.
I didn't know what was going on. Gyms were closing. I wasn't getting stronger. I was like shriveling up. I had to like buy food. Like everything was kind of weird. And then luckily it turned out.
Yeah, it did for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were with them for that long
I wasn't though. It was just like, oh, they just like would send me a package here and there, and it was one of those things where it's like they would send you packages and that would tell you like, oh hey, they have an eye on you, which eventually you'll get to be signed.
Nice. Okay.
But it kind of was one of those things where as soon as COVID happened, which lasted pretty much 2 years, the communication with that was pretty much cut off because they had to focus on their own company.
Yeah.
And having it where I was already looked at, but when things are going on in the world, you got to figure your own crap out.
Totally.
And that was the same thing with me, where it's like, okay, I got to figure out how can I work out. So I had to buy gym equipment, and it was one of those things where it really cut me off on like just with everything on a social standpoint, where it's like I had to really think about what I wanted to do, and I really wanted this, so I was able to kind of like stretch my dollars and kind of really kind of hope onto this dream, and then I got this,
Well, it's really cool because obviously it paid off, and you were still in Minnesota at that time, right?
There's this funny story. When Minnesota went into their second lockdown, so they opened up their gyms, then they closed them again. I was like, I can't go back to training in a garage.
Yeah.
So I texted my one friend who's in North Dakota State Open.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, can I come crash to your place? He's like, yeah, I don't know where you want to stay. So he had this, he had this washer and dryer room, tiny little thing, right? And we could fit a blow-up air mattress on there.
Okay.
So I just stayed in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. I don't feel like I've ever heard this story before.
I haven't filmed on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
It's like it's like maybe 2 videos where I filmed in there, but it was because they had gyms open. And my friend Brandon, he was a great friend. He was like, yeah, like I got a blow-up air mattress, and I didn't want to sleep in the living room because it was kind of weird. I wanted my own little space. So I just slept in the washer and dryer room, and that was in North Dakota.
Where was that? Where the first videos of you popping off when you're like screaming after your PRs started happening, or?
No, I was still doing that at like 17. That thing's always been in me.
That's awesome.
That's always been in there.
Second gen Pete Rubish. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's always been there. Like even my first like 405.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I mean, I love that about your stuff. With your move now from Minnesota to here, what was the motivation there? Because I know, you and everybody kind of moved-ish at the same time. It seems like,
So it kind of came down to when I was in Minnesota, in my town, super small, and in order for me to like fly out to places in general, I had to drive 3 hours.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then even with that 3 hours, I was having to go on to it was not even a one-way. It was drive 3 hours, get on a small plane to go to Minneapolis, and then fly from Minneapolis to wherever my destinations. That's so much time lost.
Yeah, seriously.
And then at the same time, I have to figure out who's driving me, or do I drop my car off at the airport? Okay, then I have to pay for that. Right? There's just so many things with that, and nobody was up in my area. And everybody was coming down here. It was better weather. And that's when I talked to Nabil. I'm like, hey, do you want to come out here? And he's like, yeah. So it was kind of nice being able to find somebody who's completely down. And he's like, let's do this. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And then it just worked out for that kind of instance. And at the same time, more people came to Texas. And being able to kind of find my own gym partner, because Nabil and I weren't training together.
Right.
We're just like, hey, let's train together. And then it worked out where I'm like, I like training with you. You bring the intensity, and vice versa. So we were able to kind of, and he's a great roommate. Yeah. He's a great friend. So it just like, it worked out amazingly. I know a lot of people that get a roommate and they were friends and it doesn't work out. And sometimes it ruins the friendship. So I'm very thankful that I was able to get like a roommate, a training partner. All at the same time.
Yeah, where was he coming from before he moved
Virginia.
here? Virginia. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, damn. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we both had like 20 hours drives.
Like, was Johnny a part of that conversation, or did he kind of come later?
No, he came in at around the same time. Like Nabil and I were like, hey, let's go. And then we found a house and we're like, all right, we need a third person. Who should we call? And we both like Johnny.
Yeah.
So we asked Johnny, and Johnny's like, give me a couple of days. We'll see if I can work something out. And then he's like, all right, I'll come. So then he came down. And then, we got to come here, and it was really fun. It was very different too, you know, because it's crazy. It's been almost 2 years since that happened.
So you like Houston overall then?
Yeah. Good weather.
What do you think is the biggest benefit to you? What do you say is like the overall, like the training or like the aspect of growth? Or
I would say I'm just so happy that pretty much whatever I need, I can get here. Versus where I'm from, if I had to get dress pants, I had to drive 2 hours or 3 hours, right? Or else I had to wait 2 days because of Amazon, right? So the fact that I can pretty much do so much in little time, which makes it so much better and more beneficial for me. So if I need somebody to film something for me, like if I have a week 4 and I'm like, hey, I just want to lock in my training, I can find a videographer. I have a videographer, which is so nice. In Minnesota, I don't. You know, it was, hey, let me have a friend here, press record. And even with that, it's not the same. Being able to have somebody who already knows what they're doing, so I can just focus on what I'm doing, it makes it so much easier. It makes it where I don't have to think, and then I can just focus on my lifting.
I think you told me you like to lift mostly in solitude, right?
Yeah. I don't like lifting with a lot of people. If I do, it's one of those things where it better be, it's like fun oriented, but it's not focused oriented. You know, when I'm lifting, I want to make sure when it's like matters, right? Now, obviously, there's plenty of times where I can have a bodybuilding workout, or oh, hey, it's a week 1 or week 2, but on those 3s and 4s, and it's building into something, and I know it's building into something. I just think of everything where it's like, all right, I'm spending this amount of money on food each week for this. This is what all this food that I'm eating, all the sleep that I'm doing, all the supplements that I take, right? All this is for this specific day to lift this specific weight. And I can't just waste that on doing pointless other crap. And not saying it's completely pointless with some things, but for the majority, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm genetically gifted at. This is the effort I want to put in and make sure I'm good at putting in all my efforts, because it completely sucks putting in effort and then knowing, oh, hey, I could have done a little bit more. I hate that feeling, and I try not to ever get that feeling.
What if I told you by watching this podcast, you could get 1 pass to unlock several gym memberships? Say what? That's right. With Rep Gym Pass and code HouseStrong, you can save money on a gym pass that allows you to go to all the participating gyms on this singular app. And if you're a gym owner and want your gym to be a part of it, comment down below and I'll reach out and we can get you set up on Rep Gym Pass.
So then I assume that way of thinking had to come from at least some experiences where you're with a group and you end up not enjoying the experience, not so much. Like what are some of the things that you felt were a detriment when you try to take some of your more serious training with a group?
Maybe like a little bit, almost, I don't want to call it anxiety, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm there. You know when you're noticing, you're like, I'm not supposed to do this thing. Maybe it was like if you snuck out and you're hanging out with a girl and you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that, right? It's almost that feeling. And I'm not doing anything wrong, but I know when I'm there in that moment, I'm like, I'm not getting any closer to my goals. I'm not. This is completely taking away. And there's obviously times where I'll do things that are fun, right? I'll go to the movies, right? It's not always like hardcore, oh, focus, because that's how you burn out. But when I know, all right, I'm on track, I'm so close to hitting this goal, I don't want anything in my way. And if I do that, I know that I'm not getting my full potential. I know I'm cutting myself short being in this spot. And I know it 100% because I'm there and I'm like, I'm not even having fun. And I want to have fun, but I only am going to have fun until after I hit this goal. After that's done, I'll be able to have fun. No problem. But it's like I've worked this amount for like this amount of payoff, and that's what comes with the price, you know? But I love this payoff. But to be able to work off all this for nothing, that pisses me off. You know, that really just angers me, because it's like, all right, all the hours, all the training, just to go backwards in progress. You know, you've had it probably plenty of times where it's like you had a really good week, maybe a good 4 weeks of training, and then maybe like, oh, Jimmy, you need to go travel, and then like when it's like max out time, you underperformed, and you're like, damn, I know if these variables were kind of figured out, I would have hit that PR.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I just hate that.
Yeah, I very much agree, especially with myself now. Time's very limited, so generally training with other people is just like a hard no from the beginning just because of time alone, but also just, would you consider yourself an introvert generally?
I'm like extrovert that also needs his time alone.
Okay.
So for me, if I train with somebody, I already know I'm going to talk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk to them because if they're new, like with Nabil and I, we've hung out enough where we don't need to talk a bunch because that feeling of, oh, this person's going away isn't there. He's going to be there at dinner time. He's going to be there at lunchtime. He's going to be there at breakfast. So anything that I think of, it's fine. I'll talk to him later. So when we're in the gym, we don't need to talk a bunch. Versus if it's a new person coming into town or a new thing and it's like a big week and then you're already on pre-workout and stimulated, you almost feel like, okay, I want to talk to this person because this person's not going to be there.
Yeah.
But that's not really like fully how I am, because after that's kind of like done, I'll go back into just being kind of in my cocoon. And I have to force myself being able to stay in that, because there are plenty of times where I just want to talk to people. But I know for a fact that's not going to get me to my goals. So I personally have to make the decision, all right, hey, these people, I can cut some time up for them, but it's the time that I allow.
Okay.
And after that time's kind of up, okay, Sawyer, you have to go and you have to get this done and this done and this done. And then if you get it done, maybe you can give them a little bit of time, but you can't give them too much time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that. That's very self-aware, actually. So in result, like we kind of like the same thing almost for different reasons. I talk to people all day because of my job, but I want the alone time. You like to talk to people, but you also know that like you have to have your alone time to get towards your goals. So that's
I won't get towards them or other ways.
Very self-aware. I like that. To start to wrap up the episode, I think from your perspective, it'd be really cool if you touch on, let's say top 3 red flags of a powerlifting gym and top 3 red flags of a powerlifting coach for beginners watching.
I had a red flag experience, and you know, it's not bad, but it was super weird. It was super weird. I did not like it at all.
Your coach tried to sleep with you, or what?
No, not coach. I'm talking about a gym.
Okay.
So I went to a gym, and they didn't allow. It was a powerlifting gym, and they didn't allow headphones.
Really?
It pissed me
Wait,
off.
what?
It pissed me off so bad. Like
this is here?
No. This was in like outside of New York.
Okay, that's interesting.
I feel bad because the person followed me, and like super nice person.
Yeah.
Right. Like actually, I shouldn't say super nice. Respectful. I was respectful to him. He was respectful to me. I don't know how nice he is. But the first thing he told me was, because I got to the gym and I needed to train, he's like, no headphones allowed. And it just fucking blew my mind. I was like, what? And he has his code of conduct of like why it shouldn't be allowed, right?
Gotcha.
But I love listening to my music and then being able to work out. Okay, I love those two things.
Yeah.
Even if I wasn't even a competitive weightlifter or a powerlifter or whatever, I would still be enjoying those two things. Even if I was weak as shit, I love listening to music and I love working out to my music.
Do you mind if I ask like why he had that? Do you know?
I think it was it kind of cut away from community in the gym.
Gotcha.
And then if you needed a spot, you could tell somebody you needed a spot or something. It's not bad, but it was one of those things where going
totally.
there, I was like, I couldn't work out here.
Yeah,
this
very
could not
unique.
be my gym.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Very unique. I guess I'm not against the idea, but I would definitely be on your side in regards to like.
Dude, it just threw me off because I was like, I'm gonna get in and get out, and how I can get in and get out and focus is put on my headphones and then just go to work. So as soon as that didn't happen, I was like ADHD looking at shit, and I'm like, I fucking just want my headphones.
Yeah. Okay, so no headphones. That's a red flag.
Yeah. I'd say if the gym it's powerlifting gym, right? They're all like multi or triple ply powerlifters.
Yeah, I'd have to agree personally, for sure.
Little red flags.
Why is that a red flag in your opinion? I agree, but like, what do you think?
They're gonna try to convert you.
100%.
You know, they're like the Mormons knocking on your door. They're trying to convert you, and it's one of those things where if you're a young kid, you're naive.
Could be in a religion, just.
You're young and naive, and they're gonna get you.
Oh, no, it's true, because I actually experienced that a little bit myself when I first started.
I saw you squatting
I competed in a squat suit and all that stuff. It took easily 15 minutes to get off my thighs. It was terrible. But and that in Arizona, like at the time when I first started, 2014, 2015, it was still kind of relevant for whatever reason. And yeah, you start powerlifting, and then you pick a powerlifting gym, and they literally just like, this is what you're working
This
towards.
is the culture.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrid.
And kudos to anybody who enjoys it, right? But
yeah,
not for me.
I think my perspective is like, if you enjoy it for what it is and you understand what it is for what it is, then like,
but don't be comparing to what that is to what it's not.
Right, exactly. Don't compare it to what it's not, and then also don't trick yourself into like comparing it to like real actual strength either. Whether that's transferable to combat sports or just transferable into actual raw lifting, and just two different things.
Yeah. Potato and peach.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I like that for number 2.
Yeah, for number 3, honestly, if the guy who owns the gym is like just trying to coach you, I feel like it's not bad, but it's just one thing to kind of like be somewhat aware of. Not saying people who own gyms can't be good coaches. I don't think that, right? But it kind of throws it off, and maybe it's just one of those things where I'm so used to online coaching, where in-person coaching is a little bit different, but. Maybe I have to take this one back. Maybe I'm spinning out because I don't know what else. Because it's like, man, I know plenty of people that own gyms that are great coaches too. So I'm like, fuck.
I hear you. No, it's a tricky question. I agree.
Yeah. Oh man.
Are you saying from the perspective of like somebody trying to force the coaching on you when you didn't ask for it?
Yeah. It's almost one of those things where sometimes it's nice to be able to go to a place. And then if that person really doesn't know and they want to reach out to individuals and that individual's already there, then it's nice. But so, you've probably had that instance where like you go to a gym and it's like, guy's already coming up to you and he's like, hey,
oh yeah, 100%.
This is who I am, monthly subscriction to this, but also monthly coaching. Let me know if you need help.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Or then it's like, all right, come on, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I got my headphones on, I got 800 pounds on the bar, leave me alone.
Yeah, I walked into a new gym not too long ago, and like within the first 5 minutes, I was handed a business card, and I was like, thank you.
Yeah, and it's their job, it's their marketing tactic, it's what it is, but it's one of those things where I'm like, that kind of just threw some weird taste in my mouth.
Yeah,
I just don't like that.
Totally.
So
like
as
those.
a young person, that'd be something super, super easy to kind of get corrupted by.
I like those a lot, honestly. I think they're actually really relative to like today's landscape.
Now for coaching, geez.
Because you're working with a coach right now, correct?
Yeah, I've been with Sean Noriega for almost 4 years.
That's great. Yeah, I remember seeing him on Nick Wright's YouTube channel back
and honestly, like when people look at coaches, because I've had a few other coaches before, some not so great, and it really depends on where there's some coaches that are great, but they just don't fit with the individual, or the individual doesn't fit with the coach, and that is not a hate on the coach or the individual. Sometimes just like how there can be a good girl and a good guy, and they just can't be in a relationship. They're just too different. So having a good relationship with your coach is most important. So red flags is just like, make sure you can be compatible with them and you're not forcing compatibility with them, if that makes sense.
It does.
And that has to be where that person also has to understand where they're coming from, what their goals are, where they're at, because some coaches want the most for their clients, the best for their clients. But sometimes the clients don't want what's best for them. And it's hard to be able to tell like a person, hey, this is where you're capable of. This is the greatness you could achieve. But the effort they're putting in is this much. But they want this, but they truly don't want it. Because if they truly wanted it, they would be up here. So they just make excuses to it. Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's where it can be almost red flags both for coach and client. The other thing too is if the coach tells them while it's already in like the newbie stages indefinitely that they're going to get you this number. I think it's weird, unless they have like progress and be able to know the individual or see the trajectory, but to flat out, you've probably seen it where a coach will be like, hey, come with me and I can make you bench 500 pounds.
Yes.
It's like,
very, very sales pitchy for sure.
You don't know. You don't know. This person could just be one of those things where they're just at their cap, you know, and there's no more. You know, it's only maybe 5 pounds of progress each year. Is what it is.
Yeah, totally.
People are so individualized where it's like so different. You can't just throw a number like that on. So that'd be my number 2. And then for coaching, number 3 would probably be And this also, it has to be, this is probably with both client but also coaches when it comes down to injuries. You know,
Okay.
having coaches know, hey, if I don't know anything about injuries or don't know what's wrong, to tell the client, hey, I don't know what's wrong. There's some coaches that a client will get injured, and it's okay to do trial and error, but I think it's also important, maybe, to tell your client, like, hey, this could be the answer, but not telling them, like, this is what's going to fix it. Because if you're young and naive, right, or maybe old and naive, and somebody you look up to tells you, hey, if you do this, it will get fixed, and it doesn't get fixed, it psychologically fucks with you. And then it almost becomes where the client will be like, nothing will work. When I don't believe nothing can work, you know, for the most part, when it comes down to like a lot of minor injuries and some major injuries, it's just one of those things where it's like, that one just wasn't for you. You know, oh, you're having back problems. Oh, throwing in like a reverse hyper maybe wasn't the best move. Maybe it was best move for Jimmy over here or Alex, but you have a different area, you know? And being able to pinpoint, okay, what the injuries are, how you can get better, and what are the steps to that. You need a good coach for that. And it's very difficult too, because you need trial and error as a coach to know that. You know, and it is a hard one, because some people are having injuries that aren't common, and others are some common, like, oh, some psoas injuries, or oh, my psoas are tight, or hamstring things, right? Or, oh, you can add in this or that to kind of make that person more aware of where it's kind of leading to the injury. You know, for me, some nicks that I've had are like some back pain, right? Preferably like right lower. And what we found is I can't squat low bar twice a week. Just can't do it. I've also figured out that, oh, hey, my mobilities in my shoulders, right, play a big role into that, so I'm not curving the bar when I'm squatting, right? So there's small things that I think both the client has to understand, because the coach can't know everything, because he's not there, he's not holding your hand. So that would probably be my number 3. And I think you've coached many times, and you've probably had both instances where maybe sometimes the client's not giving you enough information for you to work with, or the client's not giving you enough effort. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. And it's hard to really pick which one it is, and as a coach you just kind of have to do your best. But also, to that point, I think one lesson that you're actually saying too with it all is just, if you're working with somebody, at the very least, at the foundation, just make sure they're humble enough to admit what they don't know, so that you can either find somebody that does, or look for the information elsewhere. Or maybe they can help you find the information.
And it's not bad for trying to look for information elsewhere. It's like some people will get like, oh, I can't do that. That's disrespectful to my coach. It's like, no, like we're all in this idea for knowledge and figuring out what's best for you. You know, if you're hurt, try to figure out what's hurting you, right? On, you know, a scale. We already talked about, hey, you're going to probably be in a minor bit of pain if you're doing something advanced, right? But if you're in major pain, yes, figure out what that major pain is from.
I like that. So then maybe one bit of advice then for somebody to find a good coach, what do you look for? Do you have clients currently, or no?
No, I don't coach.
Okay.
No, I want to open up coaching eventually. And we can probably have a conversation off camera about that. It's about pretty much how I want to structure it, because I think for an individual to start coaching, right, they're probably taking inspiration off of the ones that have coached them, you know?
Totally, that's how it works for me.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, hey, these are the foundation of pillars that worked for me, and you're trying to pass that on to the other individuals. It's like if you had a good mentor, and the mentor passes on whatever they have, you're going to probably do that to your kids or whoever comes into your life. So it's about that structure, but also I also want to kind of expand my structure. What else can happen, right? Different kinds of formats for training. Because for me, the only thing I know is legs, push, pull. That split, and I've forever been on that high bar to low bar ratio. Like when I did my low bar, wasn't it, right? So for me and my programming that I've had, it's been so much ultra specific for me, and I know myself super well, and I think that's something that has gotten me to the advanced level that I have, because I understand how I'm at, how my body reacts. So it's about, okay, as much as I know about myself, can I also distribute that in my coaching to help that individual to know them?
Yeah.
That's the big thing that I would want to work on if I was a coach.
That's really cool. Well, I think when you do it, you'll do amazing. So I'm excited for that for sure. Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe this year. Year I'll open up coaching.
Before they hit you up, in the meantime, what would you suggest for somebody to look for somebody that's good?
I would say, okay, looking at what their clients are at, right? I don't think that's the definitive answer, because there's plenty of people that I've found out that have like really strong clients, and I'm like, well, they kind of already came to them strong, right?
Okay.
But it is one factor to look at. Is number two, I think, information. If they're expressing information online, I think that's, if you're a coach, that's the smartest thing to do, is put out information, free information on your reels, your TikToks or whatnot, because that's going to open up your audience, where if they didn't know about something, hey, if they didn't know about something and now they do. And maybe they were throwing in something that they are having an injury, the guy who's not even coaching them is putting out for free. That kind of puts me in a perspective of like, oh, hey, I tried something that they said that would work. It did work. Oh, and they do coaching? Okay, that opened up a bit of trust for 100%. Me and that individual, without even having to pay that monthly payment, because at the same time, I'm thinking through the eyes of like a kid who doesn't have that much money, you know? So paying a coach is very important.
Yeah, I love that point. That's probably one of the best points you can make, is just, you know, you get a good feel what somebody knows or what they can handle from just the little tidbits of information they put out online, for sure.
Yeah, and if you're having a coach that wants to coach you specifically, because maybe you are a genetic phenom or whatever the case is, sometimes you can get a really good coach, and because they see the individual, they won't charge them that much. That can be good, but also just be a little skeptical, all right? Because there's plenty of coaches that like will kind of take advantage of that, and they're not good coaches, but because you're already a good client, just genetically, it can help build their portfolio, and then it almost,
That's a good point. Understand your value that you bring to somebody's coaching roster in the same way that they want value for their time. You know, that's really good. Okay, good. So the last thing that I do when I end the podcast is just I touch on your take on what are 2 things that you're chasing and 1 thing that you're proud of currently.
2 things I'm chasing.
Could be anything.
Yeah, I think more world records, right?
Hell yeah.
I was looking into the 242s tested, and I think I can take the squat world record.
Hell yeah.
With my deadlift breaking again, because I've already pulled 860, which is more than my current world record. And I think I can take the total. I think the total is only like 211.
Okay.
Right, 2,011 pounds. So I can take 3 world records, which already takes my 2 world records, so I'll be 5-time world record holder in the tested. And that's just cool.
Yeah,
right?
Very cool.
Like I already thought I'm like a fucking celly that on camera would be like that. Right? I'm like, oh fuck, that's so cool.
Hell yeah.
Right? So the goals of world records for where I'm at now, and that is very much achievable. That's not one of them. And then I think the second one, I just want to be able to help my family out a little bit more.
Great.
Because I'm in a place where I can help financially.
Awesome.
And I'm in a place where I do have a voice. I do have a social media. I do have a presence, and I can do things more, and I know it's going to require more effort, but it's one of those things where, okay, more effort will also yield kind of bigger results, you know? So being able to help my family out, I think, is a big goal of mine, and
very cool.
Something I want to kind of continue to be able to do.
Love it.
Yeah. What was it?
What you're proud of currently that you've done.
I'm just happy for being able to be in this position that I'm at. One thing that I always constantly just kind of remember is I came from a very, very small town, like 2,000 people, 7 hours from an airport, right? And I was able to create this foundation that I'm at, where I was able to travel for different places all over the world, meet all great people of high stature and low stature, and learn from all these different kinds of people. And it pretty much came from a small town in a gym that only had like some barbells, some free weights, but I didn't really use the machines really. It was pretty much just a barbell, deadlift platform, and a squat rack and a bench press.
That's great.
And like, how crazy is that? Like, to dumb it down to that degree, it was like that simple, that much gave me this much.
Seriously.
You know, and it was just going in and day out, training, and then just setting my goals and achieving all my goals. And I'm just so happy about that. That I just wrote down all my goals, and that I was just stayed consistent. You know, and that was my biggest takeaway, is as long as I always stay consistent with my things, the proof is in the pudding. It's already kind of like, I've already got this done and this done and this done. I just got to keep doing it. you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. It'll be really cool to look back at this, see what more you've accomplished, and then also remember like where you started too. So.
Yeah, and that's what I like about social media. We had this conversation where it's like, I can look back when I have kids, when they're 15, 16, they can see what I looked like at 15, 16.
Yeah.
You know, it's so crazy.
Yeah, because you have that epic transformation video on YouTube,
yeah,
right?
where I'm like still 15 years old, 16 years old, where I have all these videos of me talking and doing workouts. So when I have kids, they can watch exactly what their father was doing. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's super cool. Last bit, Instagram, YouTube, sponsors, whatever you want to talk about.
Sawyer Klatt on all social media platforms, sponsors, Gymshark, Gorilla Mind for pre-workout, and Avances for lifting shoes.
I love that. I love those. They're really nice shoes for sure. All right. Well,
and also don't forget, guys, House Strong merchandise, link in bio.
We can give them a discount code. Thank you very much for the plug. And thank you for your time. That was great. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan for life, bro. I wish you the best. Until next time, guys, Jimmy House, Sawyer Klatt, out. Peace.
And that's going to conclude another episode of the Jimmy House podcast. If you guys have any questions that you want featured on future shows, make sure to put them down below. And until then, if you guys could keep liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, it would mean the world to us. The more this channel grows, the more we can provide the content that you guys love to listen to. Until next time, thank you as always. Jimmy House, out.